You are responsible to run yourself as a business. You are a business. And having a lot of debt that is non-bankruptable on the balance sheet and not making enough money to correlate the offset of it is how a company goes bankrupt, and you have to treat yourself like a company. So this video is near and dear to my heart, and I was talking to a college professor the other day, and we had a real heartfelt talk about student loans. And you're wondering, are student loans a scam? So I'm going to voice my opinion on this. I'm going to tell you my story and kind of like my thought process about this, because I've clawed my way to something. Okay, I've gone from worth nothing and a low middle class, I would say low class background, to somebody that's wealthy and has clawed my way into the millionaire status. So I'm going to talk about it, and everything I'm going to tell you is something that I experienced, thought, and thought real hard about. And maybe this helps one person out there if you're teetering on whether you should go into debt to go to school. One thing I've learned clawing my way into a category that doesn't worry about money anymore is that debt equals obligation. And once you have that obligation of debt, you are slave to the lender. And there's no way around that. And in this case, you're slave to Uncle Sam for the entire time that you have that debt. And there's a thing called the golden handcuffs. And it's where you are in this amazing work environment. You're in this nice suit, you're driving a nice car, you're around fancy people with titles, but you're broke. You're so riddled with student loans and the cost of the culture and the obligation that you can never get off that conveyor belt. You can never just say, you know what, I'm done, I'm out of here. Because come the 1st or the 15th, you still have to send that check over to the lender. And that's something that you got to really ask yourself hard about. Do I want to do this? So I think it's wild that we pressure so many people into take on student debt at such a young age. I mean, when I was 18, I really didn't know what even the world was like. My dad told me I should be a lawyer. And I was like, well, okay, Dad, well, how do I do that? Well, when I got to school, I realized like you had to pay for it, and that most people were getting these loans. I personally was able to be athletic enough to throw a baseball, and I realized real fast that they don't give complete scholarships for this stuff, and sometimes they do, sometimes they didn't. I was able to go to a junior college and it paid for half of it, and I was able to get financial assistance because my parents didn't have any money to do the rest of it, for it to live on. But I saw all my peers going through this, and when I got to 4-year, I had an academic scholarship because I worked really hard to keep my grades up, because my parents told me the only way you're going to go to college is if you either join the military or you get an academic scholarship, like we had the Bright Futures here in Florida. And when I got to the 4-year, I got a small baseball scholarship that didn't pay for much, and the academic scholarship paid for the rest. But when I decided to go to law school, and I remember like all the financial aid letters were getting sent to me and everything was going on, and I was like, I don't understand any of this, but I would have been able to sign on the dotted line. And there really should be some appraisal system for a college degree that somebody can look at this 18-year-old and be like, this degree is either worth this amount or it's not, before you're allowed to take out all these student loans. I mean, when I look at some of these degrees, I'm like, what are you going to do with that? At least in real estate, the bank will pull the reins on the deal and be like, that house is not worth that. We're not going to give you the money for it. We're going to let you go into debt upside down, really to protect the lender, but really in retrospect protects you. But in the course of student loans, they'll let you go out there and just take the money and use it and be in debt for the rest of your life. And for some of these degrees, like, there really should be an audit process. That's kind of my opinion on that. I really blame the government on this, because the moment they made these student loans federally backed, it allowed these institutions just to keep raising tuition higher and higher, to the point where Like, they can charge whatever they want, and these people can get these loans, and they can't bankrupt them, and they're going to get paid no matter what, or until the day they pass away. And it created a system that just elevated the price of education, like, to an insane amount. And if you're tracking the housing crisis, this is one of the big reasons why a lot of people can't afford a house, is the student loans kicking back in after the you-know-what. And it's ate up people's disposable income. Their debt-to-income ratio is getting destroyed by the interest on this debt, the debt, student loan just being paid per month, $700, $800, $900 a month, and add a car on top of that, and then housing prices being through the roof. It's just created the perfect storm of why we have this housing problem. And it's just something this nation's going to have to figure out. Talking with my wife, and if you've seen our story, she sold her house she lived in to pay for her student loans years later. But for my peer group, and if you're watching this as a young person, as somebody that's 39, I've seen so many people not be able to grow any wealth from the debt that they collected going to school. Yeah, they have MBAs, PhDs, and they are dead broke. And I don't mean this in any bad way. I'm just saying the debt payments every month of paying for student loans takes away and erodes so much of their wealth. And many of these interest rates are completely crazy. And this is really why so many people are rethinking this idea. And don't think that I dislike college. I went to college. It was a block check for me to get a commission in the Army, to get to a lot of places. We've built this in our society, and I feel like it's kind of gotten toxic that you have to have this block check. Does it make me any smarter than the other guys that didn't have it? No. Did it make me have a better ability to do certain things? No, because the knowledge that I had, the block check, had nothing to do with what I was doing. And I think our society is starting to catch up to this and saying, you know what, we don't need somebody to go to school for 4 years to be able to do X, Y, and Z. We can just teach them in our culture or in the business or however with a certification, and they can pass the test. So therefore, maybe they're good enough. And I felt like it was a culture barrier for many years that if you didn't go to XYZ school, you just couldn't be a part of the club. And it was the way they just segregated. One, they're not bankruptable for the most part. That means that bankruptcy court is not going to save you from these loans. This is a debt that you're going to be paying for no matter what until you leave this planet. And that $400, $500 a month now can't be put towards a house or anything to build wealth, a portfolio or whatnot. And I think back, for me, I joined the U.S. Army for what I hoped would pay for law school. I said, I don't have any money to pay for law school. It was going to be $120,000 for the 3 years plus room and board, which would have been, I'd have been in $250,000 in debt to go to law school. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, how am I going to do that? So I joined the United States Army. They had a GI Bill. They had all these things. And you might be saying, well, you have to have a degree. We've been told that. My generation was told that, and now universities spend millions and millions and millions of dollars telling the next generation they must go to school. They must go get a 4-year degree and a master's degree and a PhD. Some of the richest men I know don't have any of that. There are other options, and I make this video to let everybody know there are options. Don't feel like you have to go to college. It might not just be for you. There's so many people out there that start college and never finish, but they're caught with the debt. They still owe $20,000 or $30,000 of debt for a degree they never finished for something they didn't even like and will never even use. My degree was in criminal justice and legal studies. Did I ever use that? I don't know. Maybe it helped me in real estate. But what I wound up doing and being very successful for was being a real estate agent. And you can become one of those in a week. You know, like having a license and putting it towards something that has, that's hard, you know. There's many tradesmen out there, trades, and many contractors like an electrician and a plumber and high wire, a mortgage lender. Mortgage lenders, some of them make crazy money. There are so many licensures out there that you can get that doesn't require going to school and having $100,000 in debt. Now, if you're going to be an engineer or you want to go and be a specialized something, a doctor, a lawyer, go for it. But the amount of money you put out has to correlate to the amount of money you'll make. If you're going to spend $200,000 for an education degree to make $30,000 a year, that's something you shouldn't do. If you are going to spend, you know, $50,000 for an engineer degree at MIT and you're going to start out at $150,000, $200,000, cool. Now, I know I have a lot of friends that are doctors and they're so riddled with student loans, they can't even breathe. They can't afford anything, and it takes them 20 years to get to where they can breathe and pay off that debt. You know, they're in school for so long, and I often wonder now that, you know, I was in school for like 6 years when I went, you know, started my master's before I went in the military. I came back and started working on my master's again. That 6 years or whatever I spent, if I would have just got a real estate license and been in real estate for 6 years, where would I be? I have a buddy that actually did it. He was a multi-millionaire before 30. There's just the opportunity lost, and then the amount of debt burden you get is wild. You can do it without the student loans. Go to an in-state community college, you work, you pay for it, or you go in the military, or you get a scholarship, or you go and you find some essay you can write to get another scholarship. You nickel and dime your way through it, and you go to someplace cheap. I've never had anybody ask me where my degree was from. Well, my brigade commander did, and he made fun of me because he was a West Pointer. But it still got me a block check, and it got me to where I needed to go. And in my generation, I went to a cheap school. I got the scholarships I possibly could get, and it paid for it without any student debt. Whereas my wife went out of state, and she got her master's out of state, and she was $50,000, $60,000 in student loans very fast, and it robbed her of building wealth. And even though she was able to get a house with her parents' help, it allowed her to get into a property that built equity, and it wound up, you know, accruing $50,000, $60,000 in equity, and we sold it and paid for her student loans. But it was really hard for her to get going because of that. And I'm just trying to put our personal experiences out there so you can understand. Now, would I have been able to buy all the houses I had and had the free floating ability to start my own business if I was riddled with $600, $700, $800 a month? Probably not. And the opportunity cost would have been huge. And luckily I never had that. And that's one thing you really gotta look at when you're talking about student loans. And I feel like a lot of these degrees are created to just get you to pay for a course. If you look at how a lot of these degree formats are, like, you know, why I had to take, you know, classical Greek literature, I don't know. Like, why did I have to take some of the rec courses that I had to take? Well, I don't know. And they were expensive. And I just really feel like there's a disconnect in this next generation when you can go on YouTube and learn anything by 2 a.m. in the morning. And that's how I created most of the opportunities that I had. When you assume all this debt and you come out of college, there's a high probability you're not going to make as much money as you think, or these colleges said you're going to make. They'll give you these pamphlets and they'll tell you you're going to make $100K with this degree, and after, in retrospect, realizing no, you're not. Like, unless you have a crazy skill set, you didn't really learn anything applicable in college. When I've got to and this goes for the military too, having a degree and getting gold bar and then getting to your first platoon, you know nothing. It's the same way when you go into real estate or you go into a a business culture. Like, you know how to write, you know how to read, and probably look up stuff. But as far as operating, you've got a lot to learn, and to be cognizant of that. Not a bad thing. Got to start somewhere, but don't expect to be able to just pay for these student loans, and they're going to want you to pay for them right off the bat, and you're going to be clawing your way through these debt payments. I was able to, instead of paying somebody these debt payments, save the money every month, and it stacked and it stacked and it stacked, and I was able to go watch my videos on the rest of it and how it came about. I learned, I saved, I got better, I bought things, I flipped them, I just kept going until I had a large net worth. And I learned as I went. But you cannot do it with these huge debt burdens unless you've got somebody that'll pay for them. Unless you've got an employer that'll reimburse you, or you go in the military, or you got scholarships. There's ways to do it. Do it the right way. Don't just go to a private school and then take out all these debts and think you're going to be successful. It's going to be really hard. You can do it, but it's going to be 10, 15 years of getting punched in the face. These colleges know that the young and impressionable is like shooting fish in a barrel. They've created all these, you got to do this, you got to do that, or you're going to go hungry, or you're going to be working in a field somewhere. A lot of that was built to scare you, and it might have been true, in years past, but there's a crazy imbalance right now of the amount of people that have degrees and the amount of tradesmen that are out there, that the skilled labor group. There's a crazy imbalance now, to where all the college degrees are getting paid less because there's so many of them, and supply and demand. And the tradesmen and the people out there with the licensures and the skill sets are getting paid more. And in the next 5 to 10 years, if you want to become super wealthy, you learn a trade, you build a business around it, like electricity, welding, concrete, steel, couple it with an engineering degree. That's where the $1 million businesses are going to be created. Not taking out debt and thinking you're going to make $100,000. Look, you are responsible to run yourself as a business. You are a business, and having a lot of debt that is non-bankruptable on the balance sheet and not making enough money to correlate the offset of it is how a company goes bankrupt, and you have to treat yourself like a company. I hope that makes sense. But that's really it. Nobody taught me these things growing up. I want to teach you out there these things, and hopefully this helped. Don't forget to like and subscribe if they did help. I didn't have a dad that taught me these things, and I'm hoping that I can help you with something. And this troubled me greatly when I was young, and I didn't know if I made the right decision. And looking back now, I am so grateful I did not take out all that debt to go to law school or just college in general, because I don't think it would have been worth it. I wasn't going for a technical degree. I wasn't going for something special. I was just getting a liberal arts degree with a criminal justice background, and most of the cops don't even have a degree. Like, what was I even thinking? But I wanted to be a lawyer, and I was setting myself up. But law school for me was just not going to be a financially feasible thing, and I went a different direction. I just didn't know what those directions were. And now I realize there's lots of them. You just got to go out there and find it. Find a mentor, and then find it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.